It's the Joseph Bristol Show.
Welcome to another episode of the Joseph Bristol Show. On today's episode, we are going to talk about childhood responsibility. It's hard for me to figure out what a good title for this episode is, but basically what I want to talk about today is children. Ultimately, I want to talk about children, and I want to talk about growing up as a kid and trying to childhood accountability. I guess that's a better title for the episode. Childhood accountability, right? And here is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about kids doing things and being held accountable. So, I mean, kids hurting other kids, kids hurting themselves, people hurting kids. Well, I'm not really going to talk about people hurting kids. I'm more so just talking about kids hurting other kids and kids hurting themselves. And the reason why I'm talking about this is around when my birthday came, I was sitting down thinking about my childhood. And I was just thinking about things that I've done to people when I was a kid and things that were done to me when I was a kid and how it shaped me into who I am. And I guess I was really thinking about it because I've been thinking about my mother a lot lately. And, my mother's childhood. And I've been thinking about how certain things that my mom did. She was young when she had me. My mom was like 21 or 22, something like that. Actually, I think she was 22 when she had me. And she, and that's a pretty young age to have a kid, even though I was 22 when I had my son. So, but then again, that kind of goes into my very first point. So, first thing I want to mention, or I want to start with, is what is a child? How do we define a child, right? Are we going by age? Is that how we're defining kids? In which case, in the United States of America, an adult is 18 years or better, right? That's what defines an adult, is an 18-year-old. And in my mind, I think that that's dumb, automatically. I'm just going to say that off rip. And then the second thing, I think that we're all kind of children in a sense, because when you're 60 years old, if your mom is still alive or your dad is still alive and you're 60, even though they're 80, 90 years old, you're still a child to them. No matter how old they are, you will always be their child. So we're all technically children. And then when I think about the vastness of life, right? So back in the day, people used to live to like 30 years old, 40 years old, and then people would die, right? So of course a child is a 6-7-year-old, but if you live to be 30 and you turned 18, are you still a child? Because technically you've lived half of your life. So half of your life was spent being a child, right? And now we look at it, the average lifespan of an American adult is supposed to be 80 years old. So the average person in America is supposed to live to be 80 years old, right? So if you live to be 80 and we're defining a child as 18, then what is that? That's like a little less than a quarter of your life. So what is the time span that we define a child? To me, we have to change how we define a child, right? So I think that we should define children based on brain development. So what's the science behind brain development? When does the human brain fully develop in a human, in a person? And in which case, they've got lots of studies on this, and brain development is different for male and female. So boys' brain develop at a different age from a female's brain. That's goes into gender. We're not going to talk about gender right now, but that's a whole nother video on gender and sexual orientation. In which case, I actually had a video about sexual orientation, but it got messed up. So I'll probably remake a sexual orientation video. As a matter of fact, I might do that. That might be my next video. It might be. I don't know yet. So brain development to me is what we would define a child as. Whenever the human brain is fully developed, that's when we can say that this human is no longer a child. This human is reached the stage in which we can consider them an adult. And then what do we define an adult as? What is an adult? Right? So some people will define an adult as a person who can change their circumstances without the help of other people. Right? So what does that mean? That means that if I wanted to get up and move today, I could do that. How do I do that? I would get a job, I would start working, I would get money, save up my money, go buy me an apartment. A child can't do that. Children can't work, right? Which is actually not true. I had my first job, I was 14. I'm still considered a child, but I had a job. I was making money. So if I could have saved up enough money to get me an apartment at 16, am I considered an adult? In which case I have the ability to determine my own life and make the alterations to my life as I please. So those to me are like the two things that we have to think about, right? What is a child? What do we define a child as, and what is an adult? So to me, nobody's childhood is perfect, right? So when kids are born, none of us asked to be here. No one said to their parents, "Oh, I want to be alive. I want to be born," right? And in some religions, they say that we were already alive in the spiritual realm as we lived with our Creator. And our Creator then decided that it's our time to go and be on planet Earth. So our spirit is then put into the man, semen, and he then puts that into a body, which would be held in the female, in the woman. And that's why women and men are needed together to create life, right? So with that being said, then we have to go into this next concept of everything happens for a reason. Now, me personally, I genuinely believe this with all my heart. Everything happens for a reason. Some reasons might be you're just an idiot, and so you did something stupid, and that's why something bad happened to you. Other reasons may be that it's completely out of your control, and this thing just happened to you because you just happened to be there, or it's circumstantial. You are a victim of circumstances, right? But everything, to me, happens for a reason. Good, bad, ugly, it don't matter. It's all written. So I have the belief that God is like a screen director or a screenplay writer and a director. So he writes out the entire movie of your life. He knows everything that's going to happen. He then instructs us on what it is that we should do, so people know a certain way that they're supposed to live, and we do whatever we want to do. If we go outside the script, you know what I'm saying, he's going to try to redirect us and tell us, hey, you got to go back this way. But it's all up to us. We decide what our lives are going to be, what our lives become, who we become, what type of person we are, right? So with that being said, when I say that everything happens for a reason, if you're a kid, right, and I try to use extreme examples because I think that extreme examples are the best way. If you are a kid and something traumatic happens to you, doesn't matter what it is, you grew up in an abusive home, sexually, physically, verbally, whatever, that abuse now is a part of your life, and you have to live with that. Now, once you become an adult, you are able to take that abuse and use it to help other people. So you might meet a kid that's being abused, and you talk to them and you explain to them, hey man, you know, when I was a kid, I was getting abused, and this is how I got out of the situation. Or you become a therapist, or you become a school teacher, or you yourself have kids and you say to yourself, yo, I'm never going to do this thing that happened to me. I'm never going to do that to my kids because I know what it's like. So a lot of the times people understand empathy because they themselves have gone through these traumatic situations. So I'm going to be kind to other people because kindness was not shown to me, right? And I was a kid that was hurt or abused, and so I don't want to do that to other people, and I want to help those kids that are going through that because there was no one there to help me, right? And that's a beautiful thing. But imagine if you never lived through that trauma. If that thing never happened to you, would you have still grown to become this person to then help the children? Possibly not. You may have been somebody else. You may just brush it off. It may not have ever been a thing to you because, you know, you never lived through that trauma, that traumatic situation. So in that sense, I'm saying that trauma or bad things that happen to us in our youth, that happen to us in our youth, can help us to become better as adults so that we then look back and help other people. So even with that, like, so you'll have kids that bully other kids, right? Why are they bullying these kids? A lot of those kids are being abused. They're hurt. So hurt people hurt people. So this kid is at home. His dad's beating on him every single day. He goes to school. He's angry with the world. He sees somebody happy and joyful, and he's thinking to himself, yo, I'm angry with the world. This guy's happy. This guy's weaker than me. He's smaller than me. I'm filled with this anger, this rage. I want to get it out. I don't know how to express my emotions, my feelings. So I'm just going to abuse someone else. I'm going to make someone else hurt the way that I'm hurting, right? And is that kid's fault? Is it the bully's fault? Is it his fault? Or is it the fault of the parent that's abusing him, right? In which case, the parent may have been abused himself as a child. So he doesn't really know any other thing to do. But that will go into something else that we'll talk about a little later in the video. So what I'm saying is forgiveness for children is important. So as a kid, you're being bullied and you want to hold on to that anger against your bully, but we have to teach our children that it's not really their fault. They're projecting their anger onto you. I'm not condoning bullying. I'm not condoning kids hurting other kids. I'm not condoning even adults hurting kids because they themselves were hurt as a kid. I'm not condoning that. But what I'm saying is to understand is for us to figure out solutions. Because at the end of the day, we have to find a way to help each other. Life is hard. Life is hard. And I learned this a long time ago. And I've always understood this basic understanding that life is hard. Life is hard. It's hard to navigate life. Not only as an adult, but as a child. As a child, it's even worse because you don't know anything. And it's on the adults to teach you how to think, right? So what is an adult's job in a child's life? We are responsible for teaching children how to think. So when children are born into the world, they don't understand life. They don't understand anything. They are in survival mode. It's that simple. If you leave a kid and you don't teach him nothing, you don't show him nothing good, all he's doing every single day is trying to survive. And when I say survive, I'm talking about he's trying to figure out how he's going to eat. He's trying to figure out where he's going to sleep. He's going to have to figure out, how can I get the things that I need out of life without getting hurt, right? So he's going to maybe steal. Maybe he'll learn that, okay, I can do this thing and then people will give me something because I'm doing this thing, even though this thing hurts me. You have kids that are being hurt, and a lot of times they don't tell people because they're scared of the consequences. So an adult tells them, "Oh, I'll hurt you, or I'll hurt somebody you care about." So then that they live in that fear, so they don't talk about it. They don't tell anybody. Other times they feel like, "Hey, listen, no matter what, my dad or my mom is gonna do this thing to me, so I might as well just relax, give in. That way, it'll be over faster." Right? And that is a survival thing. That's them trying to figure out how to survive. So what separates these kids from the kids who something happens to them and they immediately go tell an adult? They immediately go tell somebody, "Hey man, I was over here and this thing happened to me and I don't feel comfortable. I didn't feel good about it. I don't like the way it made me feel. I don't like the way it made my body feel. I just don't like that thing." Right? What separates those kids? What separates them is their understanding of life, their goggles, their life goggles. So we all look at life through a filter, through a goggle, right? Some of us have Christianity, some of us has Judaism and Islam, some of us just have spirituality. We don't have any form of religion, right? Because we are taught how to think. So some people have critical thinking. They can sit down and process and understand, okay, this thing happened to me and I don't like the way that it made me feel, so I'm not going to do that to someone else, or I'm going to tell somebody who has the ability to alter my situation so that it doesn't happen to me again, right? And then even as kids, as children, we have to, where do we get our filter? Who teaches us this, right? So you have to teach your kid, like, listen, I understand that you're angry that I'm punishing you or that I'm yelling at you, but you can't go out and treat other people any which way you want because you're angry. You know what I mean? Like you don't have that ability. You're not in that position, and that's just not right. You just shouldn't do that. So the video that I'm making right now, I am mainly talking. I'm really making this because I want people to think about their childhood. We are all just the children that we've always been. So I was reading this book, and it's in a couple of different books, actually, a couple of different articles too, a couple of different science articles, psychological articles. When I was younger, I used to want to be a scientist, and then as I got older, I kind of wanted to be a social scientist because I wanted to understand people. And then, you know, and now I just like computers, and I want to get into the robotics and things like that. But in trying to understand social science, one of the things that I was trying to understand was how our childhood defines us. And a lot of us are trapped in our childhood. We're stuck in the past, right? So like something bad happens to you as a kid, and you hold on to that, and it lingers, and it just lingers. So you have adults who live in their high school years. They were, you know, oh, I was a high school superstar, and I could have been an NFL player, but I hurt my knee, and I never made it to the big leagues. And they're stuck in that phase of their life. So they go around telling people that for 30 years, yeah, you know, I used to play high school football. Okay, bro, you don't play football no more. What do you do now? What's your thing now? But we're stuck in this, in our childhood, and we haven't been able to fully process what happened to us, learn from it, develop a new character, and move forward. So we're trapped in that thing. And when I'm talking about children, to me, I don't think children are silly at all. I actually think that kids are very smart creatures. They're people. They're literally people. They're just like me and you. They're just smaller. And their understanding of the world, they don't really have an understanding of the world because the parent or society has to teach them how they should process information and then make a decision on how they should treat other people and be treated. Right? So you have children soldiers in some parts of the world. There are kids that work, have full-time jobs, you know what I'm saying? Kids having kids, you know, where do these things come from? Where do these kids learn these things? It's not just what they see. Sometimes it's their parents. Sometimes it's extended family. Sometimes they're exposed to things that alter their brains, that alter their processes of understanding the world, right? Kids even understand death at a very early age. You ask a kid, what does it mean to die? And in the most simplest form, they can tell you it means to not be here, right? Isn't that what death is at the end of the day, to not be here? I remember when my baby mama died, and I spoke to my son. He's like 6 years old, and I said to him, yo, your mom is gone. She died. Do you understand what that means? And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said to me, that means I will never see her again. Those were his exact words to me. So this is a 6-year-old kid understanding what it means for someone to die. You're 100% right. It means you will never see her again. So did he understand the full grasp of death? Probably not. But he understood the basic concept that I'm not going to see my mom anymore. So that, to me, was an eye-opener to understand that kids have kids are sponges, and we read about this all the time. They're constantly learning. But the question becomes, are they to blame for their actions, right? So when a kid does something to another kid, is it that kid's fault? Or is it the parent's fault? Is it the guardian's fault? And even with that, how can we say that it's the parent's fault if they're not with the kid 24 hours a day? So one of the things that I think about with my children is I always want to be there. So when my kids are in their room playing, I try to sit down in the room with them. I'm looking at what they watching, who are they talking to, what are they talking about? When they're talking to each other, I'm trying to listen. What are y'all talking about? Because I want to know. I want to know how is your brain working? What are you being exposed to when I'm not around, because I'm not around 24 hours a day. They have to go to school, and at school they're learning things. They're being shown things. Other kids are talking to them. You know, when I was a kid and I went to school, there's a lot of things that happened to me in school when I was a kid. In elementary school, that changed my life. It defined me. It didn't define me as a person, because I don't think that traumatic situations define us as a person. Maybe in that moment it does, But as you grow older and you process what happened to you, you then have to make a decision. Will I hold on to this hurt and this pain? And what am I going to do? I'm going to tell people, oh, well, when I was a kid, oh, this happened to me, so that's why I did it to you. Oh, who cares, bro? You're 30, you're 40, you're 50, you're 20. Like, come on, bro. That happened to you before. You don't have to do that to other people, though. So, in that sense, when I was a kid, there's a lot of things that happened to me that made me then do things to other people. And that just like continues on the cycle. So I remember being a kid and people making fun of me, and so I make fun of other people. It's just a whole lot of things that just happen when you're a kid, and without any understanding of the world, without any understanding, without a good pair of goggles, and without critical thinking and understanding how to think, it'll make you do things. And in which case, we're all connected. So one thing happens to one person, and then they do it to another person, and then they do it to another person, and it just spreads out like wildfire. The fire just keeps growing and spreading. And I just really wanted to make this video talking about childhood memories, or childhood traumatic situations, or responsibility as a kid. Who is responsible for children when they do things to other children? Is it the parents? Even though the parents may not be there all the time. Is it the child? Even though they're children, they barely understand life. They barely understand what's happening, what they're doing. They don't really understand. We're teaching them how to live, how to navigate life. And I guess really what I'm saying is we have to have more empathy for each other, more understanding. So like, as I meet people, even in my adulthood, I'm saying to myself, sometimes I meet people and I'm talking to them and I'm saying to myself, man, you must have had a rough childhood. Like, why are you acting like that? Who taught you that? Who showed you that? Why would you be this type of person? And then I say to myself, are they not responsible? Can I blame it on their childhood? Even though they went through these traumatic situations, but they don't want to change. They don't want to be better. So you'll have people who say, oh man, when I was a kid, my family never reached out to me when I was a kid. Okay, now you're an adult. Are you reaching out to your family? No, you're not. You're not. And all you're doing is holding on to the past. Oh, nobody cared about me when I was a kid. Okay, that's before. What about now? You have to forgive. And what does it mean to forgive? And don't get me wrong when I say forgive. I'm not telling people to reconnect with somebody just because you forgive them. You don't have to reconnect. And when you forgive somebody, you can move on and never speak to that person again. You can love somebody and never speak to them again. You know what I mean? Sometimes that's a part of life. And at the same time, no one has to be a season. You can have someone in your life for the rest of your life. Literally, if you want to have someone in your life forever, you can do that. It's very much possible. It just has to be a choice. It has to be something that you decide. And the other person has to make that decision as well, that they want to be a part of your life. Life is a two-way thing, but it's a very spiritual thing. And when it comes to our childhood, it defines us, right? So why are we having kids? That's another thing that people have to consider and ask themselves before they have a kid. Why? Why are you having a kid? Are you looking for purpose in your life? Do you want a reason to wake up? So you figure, I'm going to have a kid and this will give me purpose. Are you having a kid because you want to leave behind something in the world? After you die, you want to know that there's a part of you that still lives on and carries on. Are you having a kid because you just want to have a kid? Are you having a kid because you just had unprotected sex and this is what came out of it? Like, are you having a kid because you think that's going to make somebody love you or stay with you or keep you connected to this person? Like, you have to understand, why are you having this kid? Because when you have the kid, it's another human being that you're making. You're literally making another human, another life. And what are you going to teach this life? How are you going to show this life how to live life? That's the purpose of being a parent. You're teaching someone how to live life, how to think about life, how to treat other people. Not even how to treat other people, really how to think about life. That's our main job as a parent, teaching a kid how to think about life. When something happens, this is how you should process that information so that you can come up with a moral, ethical, reasonable decision or reaction to this thing that happened to you. So we have to just understand, like, what is the purpose of having a kid? Why are you doing this? Because, again, who's to blame when kids do things to people? Who's to blame? Is it the parent? Is it the kid? Because if the kid lacks knowledge and the parent lacks knowledge, or the parent isn't the one who gave the kid the knowledge to do whatever it is that they did, then who's responsible for that? At the end of the day, all of us are affected. All of us. A kid that's being abused and goes to school is going to affect my kid. So I have to care. It's something that I have to care about. We all have to care about each other because we're all on the planet together. We're all here together. We're literally connected in so many ways. The world is so small now with the internet, and people reach out to me from elementary, from middle school, and I remember one of my friends from elementary reached out to me, and she was talking to me, and I still remember, I still talk to her now, and she reached out to me and she's telling me things that I did when we were in elementary school, how mean I was to her and how I did things to her, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't really remember it like that. But my memory and her memory might be two different things. In which case, memory is something that's a whole nother video, because we don't remember things the way that we think we remember things. But at the same time, it's like when she's talking to me, I'm saying to myself, I don't remember doing that. And if I did do those things to you, I'm sorry. I was a kid. I was a kid. But at the end of the day, whose fault is it that I did those things? Is it my fault? Is it the fault of the people who were in charge of me? So with that being said, I can only ask her for forgiveness. And maybe it takes her a lifetime to forgive me. Maybe she already forgave me, which she did. We spoke about it, like I said. But it's like hurt. Everyone is entitled to their own pain and their own hurt. And everyone has to figure out how to deal with that hurt. But if you're alive, no matter what happened to you, no matter what somebody did to you, if you're still alive, you have to make a decision. Are you going to let this thing that happened to you define who you are for the rest of your life? Or are you going to just take that experience and turn it into knowledge, turn it into understanding of not only yourself, but of the person who did this thing, and understand that, one, it's probably not your fault. Two, it's done. It's in the past. And three, you can now take that knowledge that you have and make sure it doesn't happen to another person and help another person. You just have to make that decision. You have to decide that for yourself. So I think that it's just really important that we try to show more empathy and sympathy to each other and the children. We try to teach kids how to think. That's the main thing. How to think. We have to teach kids how to critically think, how to stop and process information. And we should talk to them. There's never enough talking. I was with my cousin the other day and he's like, oh man, you talking too much to the kids. They not listening. But I'm thinking to myself, bro, are you crazy? It's never enough. They're listening to everything we say to them. You think they're not listening. They're listening. I remember things that my mom or my uncles said to me when I was a young kid. And like, I remember them just lecturing me. And they would say the same things over and over and over and over and over again. And it sticks with me today. It sticks with me today. And it's science. It's literally scientific proof that you have to repeat the same thing 3 different ways for somebody to fully understand what you're saying. You have to say it over and over and over again. There's never enough talking. We have to talk to our children. We have to explain to them why we're doing something. We have to explain to them how they should think about something and why it's important that this thing that we're talking to them about, right? So we have to talk to them. You cannot talk to your kids enough. And that to me just, when he said it to me, I'm thinking in my head, bro, you really don't know what you're talking about. And you don't understand life. Like, you have to talk to your kids. We have to talk to each other. We have to understand each other. Talking is how you understand people. Listening is how you understand people. I'm sorry. Talking is how you express who you are. You know what I mean? So I just really wanted to make this video about childhood responsibility. Who is responsible when kids make mistakes, when they do things to other people? Is it the children? Is it the adults? And then, like I said, what is an adult and what is a kid? You know? So we all just have to be a little more gentle with each other, be a little more kind, but talk. We have to talk to each other. We have to talk to our kids. Explain to them why you're upset, what's happening. I'm not telling you to put your burdens on your kid. Oh, my wife is leaving me and she cheated. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is you can talk to your kid. Hey, listen, me and your mom, we're not getting along. We've chosen to separate from each other. Oh, why? Is it my fault? No, it's not your fault. We just don't get along. People change. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, I'm punishing you because of this. Do you understand why you have to go to school? Do you understand why you're not allowed to do this thing? For the people who think that kids can't understand a simple concept of who they are, I don't condone no type of kids making any life-altering decisions. So you got kids that are like saying, oh, I'm a girl, and then their parents are taking them to take estrogen or letting their daughters take testosterone and cutting up their body parts. And I don't condone that. When you are of the legal age in the country to make that decision to take testosterone or pump your body full of chemicals, that's up to you. But as parents, we do it all the time. We take our kids to these psychologists. The psychologist says, oh, your kid has ADHD. Now you're in a position, you have to make a decision. What do you think is best for your child? Do you give them this medication that alters their brain chemistry? Or are you going to, talk to them more, be more patient, maybe change their diet, maybe have them exercise more, let them go to bed earlier. Sleep is so important to your health, but that's a whole nother thing. It's important to your brain development. But what I'm saying is we have to talk more, and we have to understand what we're doing to our kids is what they are going to grow into. They're going to become adults. So why are you having kids? What is the purpose of it? Before you have a kid, and while you have your kid, what is the purpose of that kid? Understand that. Because just because you have a kid doesn't mean that you're made to be a parent. I've met mainly women. I've met a lot of women that don't need kids. It's just so simple. They had a kid, but they really don't need that kid. They're not paying the kid any attention. You're not teaching the kid anything. You're just letting them do whatever they want to do. And they're destroying themselves. The kid is literally destroying themselves. They're barely going to school. They're hanging out with friends. They're talking to the opposite sex. They just doing drugs. You are allowing someone to destroy themselves. And then that kid is going to become an adult. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to look back at their childhood and they're going to say, well, if my mom was more stricter, if my mom would have taught me this, if my dad would have. Come on. Even I thought about that. For years I struggled with that. I said to myself, if my father would have been in my life more heavily, maybe I wouldn't have done the things that I did. Maybe I wouldn't have been the person that I was. Maybe I wouldn't be who I am now. But I don't blame him. I'm not angry at him. I'm over that. It's not his fault. He's living his own life. My mom was living her life. Everyone is trying to survive and be happy. We got to talk to each other more. Talking is important. Talk to your kids. Talk to your kids. Please, guys, talk to your kids. And understand that the purpose, you as a parent, you have to teach your kid how to think. You have to teach them how to process information. That is the most critical lesson you can teach a kid. How do you process information? Anything that happens to you, experience, time, these are all things that come together to form and shape a person. We got to talk to each other more. We have to be more empathetic, more compassionate. People hurt people because they themselves are hurt. Not everybody's just a nasty person. Yeah, you have those people that wake up and are just evil, like evilness dwells inside them. But then again, why? What happened to them? Why are they like this? People just need help. They just need help. Life is so hard to navigate, to understand. We're literally living on a rock floating through outer space. We are like, come on, man. Like, there's so much. Life is just hard. And we have to talk to each other and understand one another and, take our time with each other. That's why relationships are such powerful things. When you find somebody that you can relate to, that you can speak with, that you can openly share your traumas and your vulnerabilities with, that's a powerful thing. It's kind of like therapy. It's kind of like therapy. Even though your spouse shouldn't necessarily be your therapist, but they can be. a relationship can be therapeutic. So I just think that we just have to talk to each other more. We have to take our time. We have to educate our kids. We have to teach them how to think. We have to talk more. There's never enough talking. And just take our time with each other, man, because we are all out here trying to do the same thing. Just be happy and survive. And just want to thank you guys for watching another episode of the Joseph Bristol Show. And again, I'm going to try to keep on making these videos and talking about being alive and understanding life and the purpose of life. And that's like the main thing here. You know, I don't have any shame in being alive and being a human and being a person. And I would hope that we can get rid of the idea of embarrassment and, you know, being ashamed of being vulnerable. Like, you're alive. Everyone's going through what you're going through. And if you just talk about it, you'll realize that you're not alone. None of us are alone. And another thing about this video is, you know, suicide is a real thing. And people hurt themselves. And people cut themselves just to feel alive. People hurt other people because they are hurting inside. And they're falling apart. And they don't know what to do. They don't know how to express themselves. And if we're just a little more patient and understanding with each other, we can really change the world. Like, we can really help people to heal from the hurt that's inside them, that sense of loneliness, that sense of you know, waking up and just being tired of living life, waking up and feeling like you just want to die. Like, you know, why am I here? What is my purpose? That's a painful thing. But having a kid isn't really gonna get rid of that emptiness. Having a relationship isn't really going to get rid of that emptiness, because life is a spiritual thing and we all are connected to each other. So we just got to be more compassionate with each other. And I just wanted to say that, man. I wanted to make this video about, you know, being a child and growing up and childhood accountability and anybody that I did anything to in my youth and my childhood, I'm sorry. I was just a kid. We were all kids. So, you know, who's to blame? But I'm sorry. And if that counts for anything. So, that being said, man, thanks for watching another episode of the Joseph Bristol Show. And y'all stay blessed, man. Y'all stay blessed and be safe out here. The world is changing by the minute.
Leave a comment below.
Make sure you like and subscribe.
Make sure you like and subscribe.